To begin with, most people are unaware that the Bush and bin Laden families have been close friends and colleagues for a long time. Back in 1976, Osama's older brother Salim bin Laden invested $50,000 in George W. Bush's budding Arbusto Energy Company. They met through fellow CIA employee and Bush family friend Jim Bath, who handled all the bin Laden's family's American investments. By the late 1970s, the Bushes and bin Ladens already owned oil companies and airports together. Larry Klayman, president of Judicial Watch, among others, has confirmed the Bush family also vacations with the bin Ladens and usually stays at their home when they are in Saudi Arabia. Here's a quote from David Icke. How many know that the Bush family and the bin Laden family have long been extremely close? Or that the former head of the family construction business, Salim bin Laden, brother of Osama, was an investor in President Bush's first oil company? Or that an investor in a later Bush company was Khalid bin Mahfouz, an associate of bin Laden, who was named by the U.S. State Department during the Clinton administration as a funder of the al-Qaeda terrorist network. Or that al-Qaeda was funded into existence by the CIA during the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. Or that the al-Qaeda tunnel systems in Afghanistan were built by bin Laden construction with CIA money funneled through Pakistan military intelligence, the ISI, which is the CIA branch in Pakistan, end quote. Since the late 1980s, the Bushes and bin Ladens have also worked together in the Carlyle Group, Washington, D.C.'s largest private equity firm, which deals in the industries of aerospace defense, automotive, consumer retail, energy power, healthcare, real estate, technology, telecommunications, media, and transportation. Azim says, "Hello, my love. I'm back. Your foot's lover." I don't think that was me, Azim. I don't think that was me. All right. In 1998, a 2000 George Bush Sr. traveled to Saudi Arabia. In 1998 and 2000, George Bush Sr. traveled to Saudi Arabia on behalf of the Carlyle Group and met with the bin Laden family. Then on the morning of September 11th, as the planes were heading for the towers, George Bush Sr. actually sat in Washington Ritz-Carlton Hotel at a Carlyle Group meeting with Osama's brother, Shafiq bin Laden. The London Observer reported on this June 22nd, 2002. Quote, on September 11, while al-Qaeda's plane slammed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the Carlyle Group hosted a conference at a Washington hotel. Among the guests of honor was a valued investor, Shafiq bin Laden, brother to Osama, end quote. The Wall Street Journal later called for Bush Sr. to resign from Carlyle Group. He never did, but for fear of bad publicity, the bin Laden family formally sold their investments back to the firm in October 2001. They went on national TV calling Osama the black sheep of the family, effectively disowned and washed their hands of responsibility for him. Nowadays, bin Laden Construction still builds most of the United States military bases in the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia, including the bases in Iraq. Here's a quote from David Icke. The Carlyle Group also has very close links with the bin Laden family, who have been both clients and investors. Father Bush has been a paid consultant to the bin Laden Group. Reports in the Wall Street Journal say that these Carlyle investments have been earning the bin Laden family some 40% a year on their money since 1995, end quote. Here's a quote from Alex Jones. The Carlyle Group is the biggest defense contractor on the planet, and the majority owners are the Bush family and the bin Laden family. Both families are profiting hundreds of billions of dollars off America's foreign policy, and Carlyle's earnings continue to rise since 9/11. Osama bin Laden was the 17th, that was the end quote. Osama bin Laden was the 17th of 52 sons of construction baron Mohammed bin Laden. Well, 52 sons, crazy. Back in 1979, the CIA paid Osama to recruit and train al-Qaeda fighters. When Bush became CIA director in the 1980s, they recruited Osama, al-Qaeda, and the Taliban in Afghanistan to run their opium trade. Everything changed, however, on December 4th, 1997, when American oil barons proposed the Afghanistan oil line to the Taliban, who turned it down after demanding too large a share. A BBC headline from that day read, quote, "Representatives of the Taliban are in Texas visiting the headquarters of Unocal," end quote. The proposed pipeline was to be built by Halliburton, whose CEO at the time was none other than Dick Cheney. Shortly after this, the media began labeling the Taliban as terrorists. In 1999, NORAD performed exercises in which hijacked airliners were used as weapons to crash into targets, one of which being the World Trade Center. A USA Today article from March 18, 2004 read, quote, "In the 2 years before the September 11 attacks, the North American Aerospace Defense Command conducted exercises simulating what the White House says was unimaginable at the time. Hijacked airliners used as weapons to crash into targets and cause mass casualties. One of the imagined targets was the World Trade Center," end quote. All right, in September of 2000, Rebuilding America's Defenses was published by Dick Cheney. Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, Jeb Bush, and others from the Project for a New American Century team. In it they said regarding their plans for the Middle East that, quote, "The process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor," end quote. On October 24, 2000, Mass Call was a Pentagon training exercise that simulated a Boeing 757 crashing into the building. Did you get the year on that? It was 2000. Back in 1989, Charles Burlingame, an ex-Navy F-4 pilot who worked at the Pentagon for 17 years, also participated in an early version of Mass Call, crashing simulating planes into the Pentagon. Burlingame retired from the Navy into a job at American Airlines. 12 years later, on 9/11, it was none other than Charles Burlingame's Boeing 757 AA Flight 77 that was supposedly hijacked and crashed into the Pentagon. All right, in January 2001, FBI Deputy Director John O'Neill went public that the Bush administration and Clinton's had ordered the FBI to back off investigations of bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Here's a quote from Alex Jones. "The next piece of evidence you are about to read is the biggest smoking gun of all. President George W. Bush signed Secret National Security Order number W199I, telling FBI agents as well as defense intelligence officers that if they tried to stop Al-Qaeda, they would be arrested under national security implications. This secret leaked document has been in many publications, including BBC News Online, Agency France Presse, and the London Guardian. Lawsuits have now been filed by FBI agents who were outraged by the fact that they were not allowed to stop Al-Qaeda. The global crime syndicate that George W. Bush and his family work for has everything to gain from the September 11 attacks: a national ID card, a national control grid, and a cashless society. It's part of the public record. George W. Bush signed the documents threatening defense intelligence and FBI agents with arrest if they stopped Al-Qaeda. This is the most absolutely treasonous, treacherous thing he could possibly do," end quote. FBI Director John O'Neill was so furious that he quit after the Bush administration blocked his investigation of Osama bin Laden. He was then generously offered a position in the private sector, working as Kroll head of security. Marvin Bush was director of Securacom/Kroll, which provided electronic security for the World Trade Center, United Airlines, and Dulles Airport, all of three of which were involved in the 9/11 attacks. The head of security position offered to Mr. O'Neill was for the World Trade Center. His first week on the job was the week of September 11th, 2001. Okay, here's a quote from Alex Jones. "CNN's American Morning with Paula Zahn reported that FBI Deputy Director John O'Neill resigned because he felt the U.S. administration was obstructing the FBI in their attempts to stop Al-Qaeda." CNN, January 8, 2002, explosive new book published in France alleges that U.S. was in negotiations to do a deal with Taliban. The show went on to report that Bush signed W199I, restricting the investigation. Again, this is high treason, an absolute fact. George W. Bush signed his publicly reported document. The BBC has a copy of it. The body of evidence is conclusive. George W. Bush is an intimate partner with bin Laden and a traitor to America. We have already talked about FBI Deputy Director John O'Neill quitting because George Bush signed the order forbidding him to stop Al-Qaeda. The reason for his not going public now? Mr. O'Neill is dead. His new job was head of security for the World Trade Center complex, and he died in the collapse of September 11, his first day on the job, end quote.